What's up everyone, Tommy with Studio Sense here. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Every now and then I'll use the phrase social proof. Now you probably already know what that means, but in case there are some of you out there that don't, social proof simply means that because a lot of people feel this way, it must be true, and it proves to you that it's true. Your peers, those who you look up to that are among your age group and your experience group or your generation, if they're using or recommending a specific fragrance in particular, you know that that's proof enough to you to let you know that that's a fragrance of good quality, of high quality, something that you'll be interested in. And so that's the way I'm referring to social proof. So it's going to make sense. The reason I'm going into detail and explaining it is that's what today's video is all about. I'm talking about 7 fragrances that are incredibly inexpensive, and yet everyone out there represented by the word you. So going forward, when I say you think this is great, I mean everyone out there that's used this fragrance and has recommended it and has actually gone to a fragrance website like parfumo.net or Fragrantica or Base Notes, somewhere like that, and upvoted it. That's where I'm getting the information for today's video when I say that you think these fragrances are great. Chef's kiss. So when we return, we're going to go over 7 of these fragrances that you say are excellent. Got that and more coming up, so stay tuned. All right, everyone, today we're going to be talking about 7 fragrances that you say are great. What do we mean by great? That typically means that you've gone to Fragrantica, which has a rating system of 0 to 5. Parfumo has a rating system from 0 to 10, 10 being the best, and of course 5 being the best on Fragrantica. And Base Notes has a 0 to 5 rating system as well. I think 1 to 5. Now the reason I'm talking about these 7 fragrances is they are 7 crisp, cool, and clean cologne alternatives to some more expensive fragrances out there. Now I'm not going to say this is a like for like. I just mean if you like fragrances along the lines of Bleu de Chanel or Dior Fahrenheit or Sauvage, these fragrances are similar to those very modern, very relevant smelling, very cool, crisp, and clean and refreshing fragrances. Not a ton of people are wearing these or are familiar with them, but the fragrance community thinks that they are the cat's pajamas, that they are really, really great. When I say great, typically has a rating of 4 and above or 7 and above, depending upon the rating system. And so these are some excellent fragrances that if you've not gotten your nose on them yet, I highly recommend that you do so. I own all of them, and I agree with you that they are great. The first fragrance that you say is a great fragrance and very inexpensive is one by Tommy Bahama, and it is in the Maritime series or Maritime line. It is Maritime Triumph. I originally bought this at full retail from Dillard's, I think, and I was quite surprised when I got it in because sometimes it's beyond the pale for a kind of a cheap designer fragrance brand like Tommy Bahama. They create some pleasant enough fragrances, but normally there's not a lot going on within that DNA. There's a bit more going on in the Maritime Triumph DNA than you might think because it has some really great notes in there that make it a bit more versatile than your typical Tommy Bahama. This, of course, is a warm weather cologne like most of Tommy Bahama's, but it has some really nice versatile wear in cooler weather as well with notes like cashmere and nutmeg. You've got pimento, amber, patchouli, cashmere wood, all of which resonate with more spicy oriental kind of fragrances, and that's why this is a bit more versatile than your typical Tommy Bahama. And for a fragrance that is now less than the retail cost at most discounters, you can get it for less than 40 bucks. That's a great deal for a very versatile fragrance from Tommy Bahama, Maritime Triumph. The next cool, crisp, and clean cologne alternative that is very inexpensive that you say is great is actually one from the very well-known house Azzaro, the Azzaro Pour Homme line. Pour Homme is one of their more classic, mature, very well-known lines, and Azzaro Pour Homme Cologne Intense is no exception. This was released summer a couple years ago. It's not one that a lot of people are talking about, doesn't get a lot of attention, but it is a great fragrance. This is actually your opinion, but I'm also agreeing with it. Primary constituents are lime, lavender, and mastic, which is a resin, like a gum resin. Great smelling, lightly mature fragrance for summertime. It also has that Azzaro Pour Homme signature vibe to it that's got a bit of a retro feel, kind of a refreshed version of the original Azzaro Pour Homme, wrapped up in a very musky, citrusy package. Azzaro Pour Homme Cologne Intense would be a great cologne alternative to some more expensive, freshy type fragrances out there that you're going to spend upwards of $100 or more for, and for less than 40 bucks, it is a great buy. Another cool, crisp cologne alternative that pretty much flies under the radar that you say is great, I happen to agree, is one by Salvatore Ferragamo. There was F Ferragamo Black and then Free Time. Ferragamo Free Time is just one of those quick, easy grabs that's citrusy, clean, and fresh. Kind of ticks off all the boxes in terms of shower gel fresh, check. Quick, easy grab that performs really well, check. Has a musky, citrusy, yet ambroxany kind of vibe to it that makes it seem more modern, check. Is it inexpensive? Oh, big check. That's probably the biggest check about this, is that it's super inexpensive. You can get a full 100 ml bottle of this for less than 30 bucks. It's what I would term a hidden gem or a steal. This one could even be called a light aquatic fragrance because there's marine notes in the heart, there's cardamom, there's lemon, there's a fruity zest, and of course you've got your amber, vetiver, patchouli base that just brings it round to a very particularly masculine, musky fragrance that happens to hold up past 6 or 7 hours of use. That's why you think it's a great fragrance and why I agree. Ferragamo Free Time. The next cool, crisp, clean cologne alternative is not going to be a surprise because the entire line, mostly, is really solid, very good quality. It's actually by Jesus Del Pozo. This one was released a few years ago in the Halloween Man line. It is Halloween Man Hero. I'll move it to this side. The multicolored bottle, you know, it starts out blue, it goes into a light reddish tint, and then at the very bottom, yellow. Just like the color morphs in the presentation on the bottle, that's exactly what this fragrance does. Depending upon how you feel about it, it starts out very fruity, and we're going the opposite direction. But honestly, this is how the fragrance is. When you first spray it on, you get this fresh, it's not a chemical lemon, it's just a very strong, powerfully punching, synthetic-like lemon, joined by a goodly portion of ginger, grapefruit, and apple in that open. Then you go into lavender, sage, some marine notes, and it gets more towards the blue genre of fragrances with patchouli, some aroma chemicals that just bring it all around and make it a fantastic wear in terms of performance, in terms of sillage trail. You've got a bit of moss and cashmere for some musk that gives it that more modern appeal. I think something called Amber Extreme, which is like Ambrofix, amber orientation that adds to the volume, the sillage, and performance. This one is another great gem, like several in the line itself. It is very inexpensive. You can get a 100 ml bottle for about 30 bucks at any discounter. That's again one of the big reasons that you think it's great, and one of the reasons I agree. Halloween Man Hero. Our next cool, crisp, and clean cologne alternative is one from Jimmy Choo. It is Jimmy Choo Aqua. Not really much of a surprise when it first came out. Jimmy Choo's already set a precedent of good quality fragrances for men. So when the Aqua was released, everyone was expecting a good quality fragrance, and that's exactly what you get. Opens with a nutty cardamom, a fruity grapefruit. You've got clary sage, geranium, and some marine notes in its heart. So of course, at its heart, it is an aquatic fragrance. Patchouli, amber, and seaside moss is the base that it rests on. It's got a little bit heavier, but a very volume effective base. And that is the part of the composition that it gets its performance from. A very good performing fragrance, but now that the price has dropped and it's what I consider a cheapie, so you can get this for right around 50 bucks, if not just under 50 for a 100 ml bottle. Great presentation, great modern aquatic take on the Jimmy Choo stylings. That's what you say, and I happen to agree. Our next cool, crisp, and clean cologne alternative is cool and crisp and clean because of the minty freshness that it evokes. And you know, there's a few minty fresh fragrances for men out there that are really great when you first spray them on, and then 2 hours later there's nothing. They're very much like the morning mist. It's kind of cool when it's there, but you turn around and it's already been blown away. It's already gone. Performance challenge. This one is actually a really good performer. Of course, Lacoste has made some really solid fragrances for men. And L1212 Blanc Eau Fraiche is one that you say ranks among them. Ginger, grapefruit, lemon is the open. Apple, juniper, and provincial lavender is in the heart. Vetiver, cedarwood, and ambroxan is the base. As men's fragrance goes, that's a completely modern kind of recipe for men's fragrance. But what makes this great great. It's just how they blend it and how they keep the actual costs down, yet still they're not sacrificing quality. When a brand can make something that's relatively inexpensive yet at really high quality, that fragrance typically then becomes a hidden gem. Super versatile summertime or really anytime kind of fragrance, great office friendly fragrance. Very few people are going to smell this and say they don't like it, so it's mass appealing, crowd pleasing, and for around 50 bucks or just under, it's a great buy for a 100 ml bottle. And just as an aside, I still think, even though the intense version came out after this, that this is just a bit better. All right, guys, last of the 7 cool, crisp, and clean cologne alternatives, very inexpensive, but very high quality, is one by Issey Miyake. And I don't think Issey Miyake puts out a fragrance that is super cheap smelling. There are several of them, shades of cologne, that just aren't that great. I mean, it just depends on how you feel about Issey Miyake as a whole, but usually great fragrances. This was, to my surprise, even better than the original. Although I really like the original. It is Fusion d'Issey Extreme. Fusion d'Issey Extreme, it does more than just the typical everything you like, but more. That combination of peppermint and lavender in the heart, guys, let me just tell you, both very powerful. Both want your equal attention, softened and mediated by a base of patchouli and sandalwood that is one of the best. To me, Issey Miyake hit it out of the park with this one. But what I think is so unusual about it, it's not a very popular fragrance, and yet the majority of the fragrance community agrees that it's a great fragrance. It's a great wear, a great buy. You can get it right now at FragranceNet.com for less than 50 bucks. Very well worth it. Fusion d'Issey Extreme. Well, that's it for the 7 cool, crisp, and clean cologne alternatives to the more expensive fragrances out there. These are 7 of great ones. At least the fragrance community agrees. That should be enough social proof for you to try them out if you haven't tried them out. If you already own these, let everyone know what your thoughts about these fragrances are. I went into some detail, but there's a lot more that can be said. Or share with everyone what your favorites are. Your favorite cheap, cool, clean, crisp, and fresh cologne alternatives that you enjoy are. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to today's video. As always, thank you so much for your continued support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video review.